So my name is Jonathan Daggerhart, and I'm a longtime Drupal and WordPress developer. And today we're going to look at Drupal views, and I'm going to cover everything you really need to know to make views work great for you. So I've got a little overview here that we're going to take a look at. It's pretty much what was on the Drupal groups page about the different parts of views that we're going to cover. And the way we're going to do this is I have created a simple website full of content that is a movie review website. So the very first thing I'd like to do before we jump into views is go over how I built this website as far as what the content types I've created and how the fields are set up. And that'll be pretty important when we are using views later. So the first thing to notice is up here at structure and content types, I've created 3 new content types. One of a movie, one of a director, and one of a movie review. And so if I go to the home page of this site, we're going to see that the default home page, which is just a feed of all the movie reviews I've put into the site. They're pretty simple. It is just the teaser for the movie review. But I've actually gone ahead and created a lot of content, mostly fake content, for the site that we'll take a look at, just so that everybody knows what data we're going to be querying for and how we're going to put together our Drupal views. So if you're brand new to this while this page is loading, Drupal views is a way to build custom lists or custom database queries, and as well as handle the output of those queries in your standard Drupal ways. So we'll look at that more. Let's take a look. So we've got a movie called Colossal and a movie review about that. We've got the director of that movie. And I went ahead and put in some other stuff like, let's see, Sherlock Holmes and the Matrix movies, as well as the directors for the Matrix movies, all of that stuff. So here's the content we're going to be looking at, but let's look to see how it's all hooked up. By the way, if you have any questions, just shout them out in the Twitch chat or in the Drupal Dojo Slack channel. However you want to get us the question, I'm happy to answer it. So the first thing is let's take a look at content types and a movie. Can't very well have a movie review without a movie. So what I've done is I've set up a very simple content type that has these 5 fields. The description of the movie, the directors, which is an entity reference to the director content type, the genre for the movie, which is just a simple taxonomy, vocabulary called genre, the poster, which is an image field, and the release date. So pretty straightforward. Let me just go ahead and prove this. I'm going to go to structure and taxonomies. You'll see that I have a taxonomy called genre. This is action, comedy, sci-fi, that sort of thing. And let's take a look at the director's content type. And the director content type is pretty simple. It's just the name, a body field, which is just a short description about the director, and a picture for the director. So I'm going to just further sort of show how this content is set up by, let's take a look at a movie. We're going to look at the Matrix movie, sure. So I'm just going to scroll down here and edit the matrix. And what you'll see when this loads is that it's just this data with with entity references to the director. There we are. So this movie has two directors, Lana and Lily Wachowski, as well as multiple genres. Got your movie poster right there and your release date. All of this data is going to become relevant when we start making views. All right, and one more thing, let's take a look at the movie review content type. And as you may guess, or may not, the movie review content type has an entity reference to the movie, a simple number field for the rating of how I rate the movie, as well as a review body, description type content. So I'm going to hop back to the home page, take a look at one of the movie reviews from the front end, and then we'll start making some views. Okay, so here's my movie review of Colossal, which actually is a good movie. Let's see. So it's pretty simple. There's my movie review. It's got the movie Colossal rating 4 stars. We're going to make this page a lot better with some views in a moment. But that's pretty much an overview of the site build. There's one other entity worth noting, and that is the way I've set up user accounts. I'm going to go to People and Manage Fields on Account Settings. And I just want to note that I have the default user picture set up, and also added a field name, which is like a full name for the user. Okay, now just keep all of that in your head. No, I'm just kidding. Let's make some views. So let's see. I got an overview here of the different things we're going to do. And I want to start pretty simple. I'm going to make, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a block for recent movie reviews. And I'm going to put that block on the website, in this sidebar here, on the home page. Okay, so I'm going to go to Structure and Views and Add New. And the first thing we're going to see is the Views wizard. So when you're creating a new view, the wizard is it's a very helpful, pretty powerful, quick way to make a simple view. And we're actually going to create this whole view only from the wizard. But just so you know, this page that I'm looking at right now is the wizard page. All right, so I'm just going to call this recent movie reviews. Pardon my typing. And let's take a look at the other options here in the wizard. So from here, I can actually set up everything I need for this view. I can decide what type of entity in Drupal this view is going to be showing. It's going to be showing content, but also you can make views that show taxonomy terms, users, blocks even, files, and really any other type of entity that a module may create when you install it in Drupal. Will expand this list to allow views to query that type of entity. So I'm just going to choose content, and these the default Drupal nodes have bundles, which are called content types, and I'm going to choose the content type of movie review, and it's going to load some settings, which there are no additional settings, but let it try. And it even has an option right here in this wizard. So how do I want these movie reviews to be sorted? Well, I mean, this default option of newest first is pretty much exactly what I want. So let's look at these other settings. So here from the wizard, you can say that you want this view to create a page, and you'll get some additional settings. as well as you can tell it to create a block. What this page in this block is in Drupal views is called a display, and we'll look at displays a little more in detail later. But just getting right through to my very simple first view is I'm going to go ahead and tell it to create a block, and I'm just going to leave all of this default. So we're going to have 5 items in the block. The block title is recent movie reviews, and we've got the display formats of unformatted right now. That's just divs essentially, and it's going to be titles that are linked to the movie review. So I'm going to click Save and Edit, and we are pretty much done with our first Drupal view. Now, it's not a great view. There's a lot of room for improvements, but I'm just going, once this gets done saving, I'm going to place this block on the home page, and it's good to go. Then we're going to come back and we're going to explore much more of the view's user interface that's not the wizard, behind the wizard. And as soon as this saves, we'll be good to go. So while this is saving, I guess I can go ahead and open up another tab. I wonder if it'll stream other tabs. Well, I don't have to worry about it because it's done saving. All right, so here is the rest of the normal Drupal views user interface, and we'll look at all of these different options in a moment. But for now, I'm just going to scroll down and take a look at this preview where it actually shows me an example of what my view will look like when rendered on the page. So here's my list of recent movie reviews. And here at the very top, we can see that this is a block. So we should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place this block on the home page by Structure, Block Layouts. And it does not appear to want to stream different tabs. So I'm going to go there in this tab. That's good to know. All right, here we are with the left sidebar. I'm going to place the block. And now in the block list, any new view you create that has a block display will appear in this list of blocks. Here we are, recent movie reviews. I'm going to click place block, wait for it to do its thing. And actually, I suppose I should have some block settings. Yes, so we are going to restrict this only to the front page for now. We'll make other blocks later that go on different pages. Save this. Not sure if we need another save on the actual block page. Oh, it says it's saved. So let's go with it. Let's see what the home page looks like. That's not the home page. There we are. All right, we've made our first block. Recent movie reviews right there on the home page. Anytime you place a view on your Drupal site, it's worth noting that you'll have these contextual links within Drupal where you can just click on the little icon and edit the view directly from there. So now that you see that we created a block and we put it on the home page, I'm going to ask you to trust me that as we make updates to this block, it also updates that block on the home page. And we're going to rely much more on this preview area to make the changes we need. All right. So here we are. So there is a lot going on here. If this is if you haven't used Drupal views very much, and I open this area, it even looks like much more is going on. And that's because it's just very powerful. So what Drupal views allows you to do is create a custom database query and also decide how that query is output. So if you can imagine, just the type of user interface you would need to create custom database queries alone is significant. And then if you imagine a user interface for very granularly choosing how different data is output on the screen, that's also significant. And what we have here in Drupal views is a mixture of those things. So before we go too much further, we're going to explore all of these different sections. I want to look at the different settings that the views module has. And because in my opinion, they're very helpful when you're building views, some of these extra settings that are not enabled by default. In fact, I suppose they're disabled to make it less intimidating or something. I'm not exactly sure. But we can look at those settings by going to Structure and Views. And here we have a list of all the views in Drupal. And at the top, there's a Settings tab. So here's all the views. Drupal comes with a lot of views built in. We can modify those, and we will do so later. So I'm going to click on Settings. And just take a look at what we have going on here. Okay, so what I like to do is always show the master display. I'll explain that a little bit more when we go back to views. Not being able to stream two different tabs is kind of surprising me. So there may be a little bit delay in all the different things I have planned. So always show the master display. That's very useful. Always show the advanced display section. That was the column on the right that I expanded by clicking earlier. I just want that always to be there because I don't need to hide and show it. Let's just always do it. Allow embedded displays. This is more for PHP development. If you're embedding displays directly in your templates or in a module or something. Let's see. Just a different option for labels for exposed filters. That's just a personal preference thing. And I want to show SQL query. This will show us the database query that Views is building and making and submitting to the database every time it builds the view. And I'm going to show the SQL query above the preview, just in case the preview is very large. We don't want to have to scroll to the very bottom. And for now, I don't care too much about the performance statistics or other queries. These three settings are what's important to me. See the master display, show the advanced settings, and show the SQL query. So I'm going to go ahead and save those settings, and we're going to go back to looking at our view. All right. Actually, let's see. Do we want to look at that same view? Yeah, we do for now. This will remain just an overview of the Views UI, and then we'll make a new view. So the recent movie reviews has a block. You'll see that here. And let's go to the edit this view, and I'll show you the differences that those settings I changed made. All right. So the first thing that's obvious is this advanced section is always expanded now. That's great. And I also have this master display over here. We'll dig into what that's all about. But basically, it's the default settings for this view. And these other displays that you add, such as a block, or you just add a page to the view, which is determines the output. So you can consider the master sort of the baseline SQL query of sorts, the database query building. And you can determine how a block looks or how a page looks by adding these displays to the view. So, and if I scroll down here at the bottom in the preview section, I can now see the database query that's being built for this view. And if you're familiar with database queries, then this is wonderful. If not, this can get you a little more familiar with it, or it can become overwhelming. It's totally up to you. But let's see what options we have. Okay, so still working with this block. I'm going to go to the block for now. I'm just going to go straight down the left column and talk about each thing. The first up is the title, recent movie reviews. And let's see if that title is shown in the preview here at the bottom. So I'm going to change that real quick. And I'm going to make it just say 5 most recent movie reviews. That's not a great title for a block, but I mainly just want to show that when you update the title here, this field at the top, it is the title for that display. So if we were to go visit the home page right now, we would see that the block title is now 5 most recent movie reviews. If we were to make a page out of a view, then the title for that page would be managed by this title field. So what's next? Well, let's look at the format. The format is the output of your entire list. So right now, by default, views are created as unformatted, which if you're familiar with HTML, it just means a div. But if you click on the word unformatted, actually, let me take one minor step back. I need to point out that every single one of these blue links on this page opens up a modal window with additional settings and options for whatever you clicked on. So whenever I am going to edit something, I'm going to click on one of these blue links. Just heads up. So I'm going to look at the different formats available by clicking on the word unformatted list. And by default, we see that Drupal comes with a grid layout, an HTML list, and a table. And each of these different formats have their own additional settings. For example, the HTML list. Let's change this to a list. When I change it, and it does all this background saving, it's going to load me up on the style options, basically the settings for this format. And there's a lot going on here, but it's not too bad, such as I can add a custom row class to every item in the list. I can also choose whether it's an ordered or unordered list. A ordered list will have numbers, and a few other settings. Let's apply that and see how it changes the preview. All right, there we go. So now I've decided that this custom list is an ordered list starting at 1. Pretty straightforward. And the settings for the format are over here to the right, this link called settings. When I change the format, it automatically opens this modal for me, but you can always go back and adjust these settings from here. So we'll leave that as is for now. I'll just cancel out, and we'll take a look at the show row under format. So generally there are 2 different major ways to show content within the list. You can show the content itself, which is the full content or the teaser for the content, or you can show individual fields for whatever it is you're querying. I've chosen to show the content, and in the settings for the content, it gives me the option of all the different display modes for this content, such as the default and the full content, teaser. So let me just leave that set to teaser for now. I'll apply that. And if we scroll down and look at the preview, we're going to see that now our block is outputting the entire teaser for every single movie review, which is terrible for a block, but very useful for pages. All right, let's leave that alone. And if you noticed, well, I'd like to draw your attention rather to the fact that when I am choosing to show content, this field section in views is sort of disabled. You can't add fields to the output if the type of output you're showing is the whole content, is a display mode. Whereas if I click on content and change it back to fields, we'll see, keep your eye on that section over there, and we'll see that re-enables that section, and we can start adding many individual fields to the to each row of the output. So here are the settings for the fields, which I'm just going to leave alone for now. All right. And so this field section has now been re-enabled. We have an add button, a drop down to where we can rearrange, and we have the field currently, and by default, the default field it'll put into place is the title field. So that if we look back down in our preview, we see that we're just showing a linked title to each of these movie reviews. All right, let's make this a little bit better, and let's go ahead and add the rating field to every row of the output so that it shows the name of my review as well as the rating. So the way you add most things in views, every single one of these add buttons is going to do the following thing. I'm going to click it, and we're going to get a modal window that gives me a list of everything I can add to this section. So these are all the different types of fields I can add to the output, which is a whole lot. And there's even more. But let's look at this a little bit. Let's see. At the top, we can search. So since I know that I want rating, I can go up here and search for rating, and that's going to filter out all the fields except for what I searched for. But also, if I'm not exactly sure of the name of the field, or if I want to browse and just see what's available, there's this category section at the top where I can choose the different groupings of the fields. So file usage, global is a type of field that you can add to anything. Content are fields that are added to our entity types or our content types. And there's also a few others, statistics, file usage, revision stuff. But generally, these two boxes at the top, search and category, they're just about you finding what you need. So for now, I'm just going to go back to searching. I type in rating, and I check the field that I want and click apply. So when that comes back, we'll take a look at our preview. Sorry. When you add a new field, all fields have settings. And so the first thing it does is it dumps me into this, the field settings for this new field I created. You see at the top, it's telling me that this is for the content field rating. For now, let's see, display, prefixes and suffixes. I'm just going to leave this all the same. There's a lot going on in this field section that we're going to look at. But for now, just leaving it alone, proving the point that we can add fields. All right, there we are. Here's my rating, 4 stars. It's a number with the suffix stars. Pretty straightforward. And besides just adding fields, if there's a little drop-down button here, you can generally rearrange the items in this section as well. So I'm going to click rearrange, and that's going to give me a little modal pop up just where I can drag and drop things in the order that I want. I'm going to put the rating above the title just as an example. This block is becoming worse and worse as we go, but that's okay. And now in the preview, you'll see this will switch up, and you'll see that is actually the rating field is first and the title field is second. And that's pretty much the gist of fields for now until we start getting into more complicated views. You pretty much click add and select the ones you want and hit OK. There are many more settings inside of each field that we'll go into later. When you click on this field name, you get, like any other of these blue links, you get the modal window with all the different settings for that particular thing that you clicked on. For example, let me just do one of these settings right now. We can create a label. I'm going to call it rating. We have a checkbox replacing a colon after the label. Sure. And I'm going to apply that. That's pretty straightforward. And what we'll see here in our preview at the bottom is now the rating field will have the word rating in front of it. There it is, rating, 4 stars, and the title of our review. All right, so moving on for now, let's look at filter criteria. If you're familiar with SQL statements, the filter criteria is the where statement. So by default, when I created this view using the wizard, I told it I wanted content of the content type movie review, and it added this filter to the list of filter criteria. If I click on this, you'll see that actually I have a lot of options I have every content type as an option for filtering. So I'm just going to leave that alone as movie review. And you'll see that I also have a filter called publishing is equal to yes. Let's take a look at the SQL query and see where this exists. So here we are. So where node field status is equal to 1, that's published is yes, and the node type is in this list which only contains movie review. So I'm going to delete this real quick and add it back, and we'll see how it works. All right, so now I'm no longer filtering by the content type movie review, so it's getting all content, all nodes of all content types that are published, and the first 5 happen to be, it looks like a director, a movie review, and a page. So I'm going to go ahead and add back the content type filter. And I'm going to play with it a little more just to show how it works. But here on the Add Filter page, it's exactly like Add Field in that there's a search at the top and different categories also at the top for helping you find stuff. If I search for the word type, one of these is going to be content type. There it is. Let's add a content type filter. And I'll get the options that you saw earlier, which is checkboxes with different content types. And I'm going to check a few of them just to show the SQL query how that changes. But then we'll change it back to just movie reviews and almost be done with this block. Okay, so now my SQL query says if the node type is director, movie, or movie review. Great. You can see how the UI is actually building our database query for us. All right, change this back to movie review. Hit done. And the exact same situation applies to sorting. So the sort criteria section is the order by section part of your SQL query. So right now, and by default, whenever you create a new view, it'll be ordered by when that view was authored. I'm sorry, when that content was authored. And here is that represented in the SQL query at the bottom. But we could just as easily delete this and sort by some other mechanism that it gives us. Let me remove this sort criteria. And I'm going to add a new one. And we're just going to sort for now by rating. Actually, let's sort by random. So one of the available sort criteria in this in Drupal core is random. Again, note that this box looks exactly like adding a field, adding a filter. Anytime you add something, you get a box just like this. All right, and one of the sorts is random, so I'm just going to check that, hit apply, and we might get a little settings pop up here. But we'll take a look at the preview. Nope. Well, not very many settings for random. Random is random, by the way. We'll apply that and take a look at our preview. Preview it a few times, and we'll see that the order changes. All right, so huge fun, then first against the wall. We'll update our preview, and you'll see that the order changes each time I update the preview. Because I've told the query to sort the items in the list randomly every time. Okay, so I'm going to fix this fix this block a little bit, make it more useful. And then we're going to create a new page of recent movie reviews. I'm going to make the title first. Doesn't need to be an ordered list. It can be an unordered list because those numbers are meaningless. Format settings to an unordered list. Save that. And I'm going to add the authored by sort back into place because this is a recent movie reviews block. All right. So here's a possible quicker way to delete multiple things at once is you can go to sort. If you sort items in a section, there's a remove item. There's a remove link next to each item. So I'm just going to click that. And then we'll add back the default. And keep going. So I'm going to add a new sort. And then we're going to find the sort that is when this content was created. Let's see if created comes up. Authored on content. Time that node was created. Perfect. And the settings for this, so this sort is more than random. So it has settings like a field or a filter. And you can choose to sort it ascending or descending. We want it descending, the biggest time number first, and granularity by a second. Sure. I'm going to hit apply, and I think we're good with this view. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm going to save it. It is good enough for now. And we've basically covered an overview of everything in the left column. That is a significant part of your work. I'd say something like 80% of your work in the view, in any given view, is going to be in this left column, where you're setting up fields, you're setting up the filters to get exactly the data you want, or you're managing the format, how it's generally output. So let's let that save. All right. And now, now what do I want to do? I think I want to talk about the middle column. If at any point you have any questions, just throw them out there. Happy to answer. But until I get a question, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to talk about this middle column. Or, yeah, just the lower half of this middle column. At the top, you'll note that the first thing here is block settings. Well, every different view display I create is not a block. So this section is actually the part of the view UI that will change depending on the display you choose. So since I'm on the display of a block, I have settings that are specific to this block. We'll come back to that, but common to all your views are the rest of these fields in the center column or section. You have the header, footer, no results behavior, and pager. So let's take a look at each of these. The header and the footer are just generally content that you display above your list or below your list. Pretty straightforward. And they work like fields or anything else. If I click add, I'm going to get a list of possible header fields that I can add to this view. You can render an entire entity, specific entity, if you want. Or you can use these global, like a generic text area, unfiltered text, summary for your view. So I'm going to add two of these. I'm going to add both a text area and a results summary. This will do two things. First, it'll highlight how I can add more than one thing at a time. And this works in fields or filter or anything else. You just check every one you want. Hit OK. And also, it shows that the results summary is pretty useful if you're creating admin views, which I tend to do. And by admin views specifically, I mean views made for your site administrator to manage their content. So I check two boxes and click Save, and the first thing it's going to show me is the settings for the first box, and that is the results summary field that we added. Gives me some options here. Total number of items it finds, the beginning and the end. I'm just going to leave that alone. Hit say apply, and then I'll get the second field which I chose, which was just a generic text editor. So I could put anything at the top of this list. It could be hello world. It's exciting. It's exciting text I placed there, and hit apply. And you'll see in the preview we have both of these items, but we have the results summary as well as that generic text area I added. It apparently did not separate them, or they're in line for some reason. Let me go back to this text area, add a paragraph just to separate them a little more. And that'll look more like I expected. Here we are. Our results summary showing items 1 through 5 of a total of 8, which means I must have 8 movie reviews in the system. And my arbitrary text that I added as the header. The exact same options are available as the footer. You just add a text area or any of these fields that are available. And the no results behavior is a bit different. So I'm going to skip footer, but I'm gonna create a no results behavior field. It'll just be a text field. And what this is this is what is shown if your view has no content to display. So I'm going to scroll down and just add another text area. And I'll type in something like, there are no results. But there's plenty of great uses for the no results type field. Let's see, there are no results. hello, just so that we know that's my custom text right there. The word hello is going to be the dead giveaway. Click apply. So something I often do for administrative views is if there's no results, I may supply a link to whatever the person needs to do. So if there are no movie reviews, I could create a link there that says, click here to create a new movie review, or something like that. Since this view actually does have content, the no results behavior field that we just created does not show up. But if I were to change this view to make it so that there was no content to show, then we would get that. I'm gonna change the view and change the publishing status to no, so that it's only querying for unpublished movie reviews, which I should have none of. And that should trigger the no results behavior. And here we are. Since views could find no movie reviews that were unpublished, it shows me whatever content I placed into the no results behavior section. Right here. Make sense? I hope so. If not, ask a question. So the pager. Let me fix the publishing status real quick. So a pager is exactly what it sounds. It's a number of pages available, number of items per page, and whether you want a full pager or just a simple next page, previous page type situation. So here next to use pager, I'm going to click display a specific number of items, which is just the current setting, which is the link that opens the modal. All of this works the same. And I can choose to have it output a pager, the full pager, or just display all items, every single movie review. Don't limit it at all. So I'm going to have it output the full pager just as an example. And we get the pager settings. So items to display, offset. Do we want to skip the first number, some number of items? That's very useful in certain situations. If you're building like a landing page where the first movie review is really big at the top, but then you have a list of other movie reviews, you may build a view that is offset by 1 to skip that first item listed. Let's see, number of pages, some different labels, a lot of options here for your pager. All right, and now that I save that down at the bottom, you'll see that I do have this pager listed on the output. We've got 2 pages, a first, a previous, and that's your pager. You can change it to a mini pager, which is just next and previous link without all the without every page number in between. Let's see that real quick. Still have you have less pager settings for the mini pager. Pretty much just the previous and next link. And there we are. We've got a mini pager. And aside from these settings at the top, which are specifically about the display, we've covered the whole middle section. It's pretty much header, footer, no results, and pager. And excuse me for a moment while I take a quick break. And if you have any questions, now's a great time to throw them in the chat room. And I'll be right back. I'm back. Sorry about that. Did I get any questions? Okay. Not not very. Um, so some of the major differences that practically won't matter for the average, for most site builders, for any site you build, is that now a view is an entity in Drupal 8. So theoretically, you could make, if the UI was available, you could make a query for all the views in your system, just like you make a query for content. And also, one feature, there's a few features that are missing, that are new to Drupal 7 within the past year or so. There's a filter that allows you to compare two fields. That still isn't in Drupal 8 yet, but they're working on it. And if you're familiar with using Drupal 7 view templates, well, they still work the same, but in Drupal 8, it is missing the UI for it. So in Drupal 7, there was a little section over here called Theme, where you could click and get an example template and set up which template is loaded in which theme. But all of that still works. There's just no user interface for it. Aside from that, almost everything is the same. So if you know views for Drupal 8 or Drupal 7, you're good to go both ways with it. There might be some minor differences here and there, but generally nothing major. That's why it's one of my favorite things, frankly, to talk about and teach. Like, that's what's so great about a lot of the Drupal stuff, really, is that once you get like the basics down, once you get views down and building content types, you're good to go for almost every version of Drupal, no matter how crazy they change the code in the background. This is like the fundamentals for making great Drupal websites. And on that note, let me save this view. Any other questions? Happy to answer those. I'm going to save this view, and I think it's about time to make a page. And we're actually going to make a page by adding a display of page to this view. So what we'll see is that this one view can manage any number of outputs generally, and they can be related to each other through this view. There's probably a better way of describing that, but for now, I'll just show it. So I'm going to, here on the same view, I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to click Page. And we're going to make this view output to a URL within Drupal that can be visited. We can add it to the menu, which we will do. And we're going to look at where you start to get into a little trouble with some display stuff. So here we are on the page display now. It tells me that I need to save it. That's fine. And you'll see that everything else is the same here in the user interface, except that top middle column. The top of the middle column now is page settings instead of block settings, which is relevant. So keep your eye on that top middle column, the top of the middle column, whenever you're jumping between different displays or adding new displays. Generally, that's where your custom display settings will be. Sometimes display settings will be over here in the format section, such as with RSS feeds. So for now, let's just keep this really simple. I'm just going to give this page a URL, and then we'll take a look at it. So this is going to be at /recent movie reviews. and apply. That's actually one difference too. In some parts of Drupal 8, you need to provide a / for your path, and in other parts, you don't. That's something somebody will work that out eventually. Oh, now moving on. So now what I did is I clicked on menu, this no menu section. Let me close that. So I want to add this new page to the main menu of the site. So I click on this menu section, and I'll get different options for doing that. The main one I'm going to focus on right now is a normal menu entry, and my window could be bigger. There it goes. And I'm going to say the menu title will be recent reviews, just to have something a little different. And I can choose where it lives in the menu. So main navigation, is that correct? You got all of Drupal's menu here. That's a lot. Okay, I think it is main navigation. Yes, along with the home and overview, we'll be adding a new link. And the weight is which order it appears in the menu. So let's apply that. Click Save, and then we'll go visit our brand new page. Even though we reviewed all of these other sections, what's noteworthy here is that to create a new page in Drupal, all we did was we just added a display to this view called Page. Now, if I if I go back to the site, once this is done saving, we'll see that this menu item is now part of our main menu navigation. All right. So it's automatically previewing. I'm going to go back to the site. And now I have a tab here at the top called Recent Reviews. If I click on that, we're going to see the same output that is over here in the block, but now as its own page in Drupal. There it is. We've got our pager, we've got our header, everything. And we even have our little contextual link here to edit the view. So I'm going to go back and edit this view, and let's look at some problems. So one thing to note, when you're working on a view that has multiple displays, anything you change on one display can affect the other. For example, if I go here and I remove the rating field, I'm just going to delete it. And then I take a look at the block display. There's one more view setting I want to change real quick after we do this. If I go and look at the block display, we'll see that I actually deleted that field here on the block display as well. So all of these settings, except for this display specific settings, are interconnected between all the displays on this view. If you edit one, you may be editing others. But there is a way to edit settings or alter the content in a section on a specific display. And that's where this third box at the top of all the pop-ups comes into play. Previously unmentioned. At the top of all the pop-ups, we have this select box in the top left that tells you how our changes, what displays our changes affect. So if I click on the field content title, here at the top left, I see this drop down that says all displays or this page, override. So that if I leave it as all displays and make some sort of change, that's going to update it's going to update the block and every other display on this view. So really what you end up doing is you override different sections for different displays. And I'm going to do that now. So I'm editing the title, and I'm going to say that my changes to this title should only affect this page. I'm going to hit apply. And what that actually does is that changes the entire field section to be overridden. Now, it's very hard to tell. Note how the word fields, if you can see, is slightly italic. That denotes that this section is overridden. I am not a huge fan of how subtle that is, because you can get in a lot of trouble by messing up your views by thinking something is not overridden or thinking something is overridden and just forgetting. It's just way too subtle. So let me save this real quick. And I'm going to show you a trick I like to do on all my admin themes or on all my Drupal sites, just to make this situation much more easy to deal with. I'm also going to change one more view setting. The setting I want to change is this automatic preview, mainly because it's costing a bit of time in this presentation. And really, so every time we edit the view, it automatically requests another preview. I'm going to change that so that it doesn't. So two things. First, let's fix the view setting. Turn off the preview, save us a little time in the future. And then I'm going to put a little CSS on the website that'll make the overridden sections of views much easier to notice. Let's see. Automatic update preview on changes. I'm going to disable that and click save. Now I'll manually have to click the preview button, but that's better than it automatically doing it every single time. All right. And on many websites, I'll have a child theme of the admin theme, and I would put the CSS in that child theme. But for this example, I'm just going to cheat, and I'm going to put some CSS in a block. What's important is the CSS and not how it's added for this example. So I'm going to add a custom block. And I'm going to drop some CSS in there as soon as it loads. All right. So this is basically saying any views column with the class overridden is going to get a dark red border around it, which is great. You'll see. I'll call this admin CSS. Did we lose? Yes, we did. So I had to change the text format to full HTML if you're following along, and that lost my style tag, but now we should be good to go. I'm going to save this, place this block on my admin theme, and we can deal sanely with the with overridden sections of the Views UI. And this will be really noticeable as soon as I flesh out this block and page view a bit. I'm going to take a moment to clean it all up. Let's see, we want to, all right, I need to go to block layout. I've got my custom block. Now I need to assign it to the admin theme specifically. Which is called 7. I do have a custom theme for front end that we'll look at eventually. And I'm just going to add this block to the content section. It doesn't really matter. Do you know how out of sync the sound is? I'm getting a report that the sound is not synchronized. I'm going to click place block right now. Okay. Well, maybe try refreshing the stream. And if that doesn't work, I'm not sure. All right. So I added that CSS to the admin theme, and let's go back and look at our view. Hopefully, I can't recommend enough adding just a little snippet of CSS that makes that makes it much more obvious what is and is not overridden in a view. So I'm going to edit my recent movie reviews. And nothing overridden here. Let's go back to the page display. Hopefully I didn't mess this up. Yes, so now I can tell that the fields for the page display are overridden because of that nice red border. Take that home with you. That's a good one. Also, we are no longer automatically previewing the view every time we save it. So we can move through this pretty quick. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to make the page view for this a good bit different than the block view. So the block view will just be a list of titles, that's fine. But the page view, I want it to be the title and the body and the rating and just some other data. So I'm just going to add a bunch of fields to the page view. And you'll note that now this section up top says this page override. It says that by default from now on when I'm working in an overridden section. So let's get the rating. Let's get the movie. And we want the body, the description, for now. All right, I'm going to work through all of these different fields pretty quick just by setting them to their default. And we should be good to go. So this is the body field, default, good to go. The movie, well, for now it's just a link to that movie, but we can get more information about the movie later. And the rating, I will also just sort of click through. All right. So I'm going to rearrange this to put the movie and the rating above the body. We'll go back and look at our page. So title, movie, rating. That sounds good. Apply this, hit save, and go check out our page. All of this seemed a lot faster when I was practicing. So this tutorial may run a while. I hope y'all got time because we've got a good bit more to cover. Once this saves, I'm going to go ahead and double up a little bit. I'm going to go back to the block display, and I'm going to set up a more link. We'll see what that looks like. I'm going to override the pager on the block display. All right. And then we'll see how these two things are interconnected when I go back and visit the front end. I want to save a little time on loading all of these different pages. Okay, so I'm going to tell the block display to override and only display a specific number of items for the pager. We don't need a pager on the block. Instead, we're going to use the block to send them to the page that we created by enabling the more link. That doesn't matter to me. So someone says we can do multi-part. I really don't mind either way. So this more link, we'll just create a simple link from the block to the page, and that link's text will be the word more, which I'll leave there. And I'm going to click apply. And save. And then we'll go back and take a look at the front end. We'll see how the block and the page are related. So far, we're still only working within one view. We've just added multiple displays to this view. So while this is rolling, saving, talk about good practice, especially, I guess, well, only within my own experience. I can't speak for others' experience. But when it comes to displays, I feel that you can definitely overdo adding too many displays to a view. In some cases, it's better to just go ahead and create a separate view. For example, if we were to create a view that had, say it had 5 different blocks, and each of those blocks, all the sections were almost completely overridden between each other, then at some point there's really no purpose in having all those displays within a single view. And in fact, it probably hurts you as far as maintenance and the likelihood of causing a problem. So personally, I would say the number of displays you put on a view I try to keep it around 2 or 3 at the most. And really, as soon as I start significantly overriding a section for one display, I'll tend to go ahead and break that out into its own view. It's just easier. You'll find it easier to maintain multiple views than fewer views with lots of displays. Okay, so here we are on the home page, and I've got my recent movies block. It's got its headers in there. It's got a list of all the different movie reviews, and now I have this more link at the bottom where when I click on it, it will automatically take me to the page that is on that view, which is this 5 most recent movie reviews page. We'll need to change some of this, but you see that we've got our title, it's tiny. We got our movie name, relatively indistinguishable from the title. And we've got the body and the rating, all of that stuff here. And I believe it's only loading 5 items. So I'm going to improve this. I'm going to improve this a bit. I'm going to just edit this view real quick. And I think what I want instead is that the list of recent movie reviews will be teasers, and the block will be fields, and the page will show 10 items in a full pager. So let me just go through that real quick. So I'm going to edit the pager. I'm going to override it. And I'm going to say a full pager. And I'm going to set it with a number of items of 10, just so it's a little different. Save that. And after this, I'm going to go over to the page doesn't need a more link. Let's override that and get rid of that. So override that. We don't need a more link on the page itself, just from the block. So then I'm going to go over on the left to the format section. I'm going to click on fields, and I'm going to override this to display content so that the page will display content and the block will display fields. So we're getting pretty close to my personal line of how much stuff is too much to override before you want to break it into another view. But this is just an example. Yeah, we will show the teaser for on the page, whereas the block still has the fields. I'm going to save this to prove the point, but then we're going to dig into the next the next big area of learning views. A lot of this, as far as like how it's output, choosing your pager, choosing your fields, a lot of that is pretty straightforward, and you're going to get most from just playing around. I highly recommend trying to build your complicated views on your own and just exploring what options fields and filters have. All right, so we're back here on our recent movie reviews page, and there's now a list of teasers. Great. That looks good. So the next thing I want to talk about is exposing filters and exposing sorts. So what does that mean? Well, in Drupal views, you can both your filters and sorts. I'm going to go back to edit this view real quick. Your filters and sorts can all be exposed on the front end so that the user viewing the page can choose how to filter something or how to sort something. For example, I want it to be possible for the users viewing this page to sort the list by rating so that movies that are reviewed with the highest rating are shown first. Or if for some reason they want to see the worst movies, they can sort it the other way so that movies with the worst reviews, with the lower ratings, show first. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to remove the sort criteria of authored on. I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to add a new sort criteria for the movie rating, or the reviews rating, rather. I'm just going to click add. Same old, same old. I'm going to search at the box at the top for the word rating. I'm going to add the rating as a sort to this view. And then on the settings for this sort criteria, you'll see a little checkbox that says expose this sort to the visitor. That's exactly what I want to do. So by default, this sort is hidden in the background and just used for the database query. But if we expose it to the visitor, then on the front end, we can choose how the list is sorted. So we'll have a label for this sort called rating. Just delete that. And by default, I want it to sort descending, so the highest rated stuff first. Let's apply that to the display. And I'm going to fix one more thing while I'm here. Oh, look, I messed up. See, what I did was I deleted the sort criteria without overriding it. So now the block also has an exposed sort for rating. This is why, in my personal experience and opinion, too many things overriding start to get complicated. So let me go ahead and edit this and set this setting for the sorts on the page will override the master in the block. Okay, that's fine for now. And I need to fix another thing. So now my page should have a different title. It's not just the 5 most recent movie reviews. It is really lots of, it's actually movie reviews by rating or something like that. We're starting to confuse what good this view is for. But I'm going to edit the title and I'm going to say that this page overrides it. And I'm just going to get rid of the word 5 most and apply that. All right. And though I broke the block, I'm going to leave it this way for now. And we're going to look at the exposed sort item. And when you are exposing sorts and filters, it essentially just adds a form to the top of that view in some way that lets the users choose these things. So now the user should be able to say, to sort this page by rating, ascending and descending. And let's see that. There it is. So now my view has a little form at the top for sort by rating, and sort by descending. I guess that is first. So I'm familiar that this is the matrix review and that it is rated at a 5. So that would be descending. If I change it to sort by ascending and hit apply, then we should see the worst review first, which I don't remember what it was. Sherlock Holmes, the movie. It was a 3. So there we are. We've exposed the ability to sort a view on this page. And you can expose sorts and filters on any view, generally. Page and block, I guess. And it's a great way, again, for making administrative views, for managing your site content, exposing these filters and views. So I'm going to edit the view again. I'm going to expose a filter real quick. And then I think we are ready. After we look at exposed filters, I believe we're ready to dig into the advanced area of views. All right, so let's see, what filter would we like to expose? I'm going to add a new filter, and let's see, the movie review content type only has 3 fields. It has a title, a body, and a rating. Let's see, I am going to, I think I'm going to expose the title field. Even though this isn't a great use case, it will let us just show off exposing filters. So I'm going to select the title field, hit apply, and then when the settings pop up for this filter, I have the checkbox, expose this filter to visitors. Great. And I can choose some more settings about how it works. So the operator is equal to, that would mean that the person has to type in the exact title that they want for it to work. I don't want that. I just want the word, I'm going to change the operator to contains so that whatever the user types into this field, if that is a part of the movie review title, it will be returned in the list. So I'm going to hit apply. And of course, I did not override again. Apologies for failing to override all of the things, but it'll do. And since we just saw, well, let me go ahead and save that and go back. We'll test out that filter. And I think we'll look at using this one setting over here called Use Ajax. So once this saves, we should see that the form at the top of the view now has 2 fields, It has the rating field, and which determines the sort order, or it has a sort order field. And it also has this title field, which will essentially let me search movie review titles. There it is. So the title, sort by order. So I'm going to find something to search by real quick. Hopefully I use at least one word twice. I did not. So since we're dealing with contains, I can keep it simple. And I'm going to say is. If I hit apply, we'll see that it is now filtering this view for any title with the two letters IS in it, which are these two titles. Pretty great, huh? So take a look at the top. We're gonna make one more change to this view before moving on to the more advanced stuff. So at the URL I have in the bar, in the URL bar of the browser, has the values for these fields that I'm using to filter and sort the view. It says title is equal to this, sort by field is equal to rating, value, etc. So that's pretty good, actually. You can use views this way for a number of reasons. You could have links that automatically go to a view, and if that view has an exposed filter on it, could automatically search that view for you. For example, let me change up here in the URL from is to, let's see, un. So now I'm looking, so this link will automatically search this view for us. I'll just visit this URL by hitting enter into it. And so you can actually link to results of your views page with these URLs generated by the exposed fields and the exposed filters and the exposed sorts. So that's pretty cool, pretty useful for some things. For other things, you may not want to expose the value of filters in the URL, exposed filters. And so in views, there is, I'm going to go back and edit this view. There's a setting on the right in the advanced column called Ajax. And if you enable that, then all of your views reloading, be it changing page, filtering through exposed filters or sorts, all of that will happen behind the scenes with Ajax. And that setting is over here on the right under Other, Advanced, and Other, Use Ajax. I'm going to click on that. Tell it yes, use Ajax, apply that, and now we'll see that we can use our exposed form or our pager to browse through to alter the view behind the scenes. And you'll even see the default Drupal Ajax spinner appear when we make changes. So I'm saving this view, and we're going to go back to it and filter it one more time. This time with Ajax. While this is loading, I don't know if we have time, but there's a section over here on the right called Exposed Form. You can actually choose, rather than have this exposed form appear here at the top of the view, you can choose to expose it in a block. And then you can place that block anywhere on the page. So that's useful as far as knowing about exposing filters and sorts. So I'm going to search again, this time just for the two letters EE, and hit apply. And you see that spinner appear. And I have not reloaded the page, but views is now filtering, sorting, and paging with Ajax, just with that one little checkbox. And there we have it. So I believe this ends most of the sort of beginner and maybe sort of intermediate part of views. Let me go back to this view and we'll talk about what we covered. And I want to review just a little bit, but but then if you have any questions, now's a great time to ask a question. And aside from that, I'm going to start making new views using the advanced column. So I'll give a moment for questions if there are any. Okay. Well, it doesn't. So Ajax doesn't require the entire page to reload, so it can be a little faster as far as uh, the page doesn't have to redeliver all the CSS and all the JavaScript and re-render like the header and the footer. It's just one. It's just the view itself that gets reloaded. So there's a performance issue, sort of a performance bonus in using Ajax. And the stylistic bonus is that it's cool. Um, take that for whatever it's worth. Um, but mostly, I would say performance or hiding the URL. Okay. So a just a list of all terms a within a vocabulary. Okay. Yeah. So what you would do there is you would, let's see, there's a number of ways to do that, I suppose. But you would create a new view that has a contextual filter, and that is actually what I'll do very next. Uh, con- Contextual filters are are great. What they do is they dynamically filter the view based on the context, so the page that's being viewed or the user that is viewing it. And so I will look at that next. Um, let's see. So far we've basically covered all the left hand column. We've got formatting the display, choosing the fields and data that is output, filtering so that you're getting exactly the data you want, exposing the filters so that you front end users can alter the list as they need to, and sorting and exposing the sorts. We've got headers, footers, no result behavior, pagers. So we've covered a lot of views functionality. And the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to dig into contextual filters and relationships. And that's where it starts to get sort of, I mean, I consider it advanced because I guess it's less well known, but it's incredibly useful once you learn these two sections. So let's do that. I'm going to go back to the home page of the site, and I need to make a decision about the views I want to create. So let's look at let me look at my overview because I sort of planned this out a little more. I don't know if we need to do relationships or contextual filters first. Relationships. Okay. Well, apologies, Daniel, for. Oh wait, I'm the only one that can hear you. I was probably just answering questions that nobody heard the questions of. Sorry. Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm gonna actually back up just a second and not do contextual filters yet. I want to do relationships. So what relationships do is they allow me to pull data between all of my different content types that have entity references to each other, or taxonomy terms that have entity references to each other. And the best way to display that is I'm going to go back to my recent reviews block. I'm going to look at the block. And even though I now have exposed filters and sorting on this block, I'm going to edit this up. And what I want to do is next to each one, next to each review, I want to show the movie poster and maybe even the movie name next to it. This way, it adds a lot. I mean, first of all, it makes the block a whole lot better in that it's got a visual element of the poster, and also it allows us to show relationships. If you recall, or if you don't recall, the movie review content type has an entity reference to the movie. So on the movie review content type itself, there is not a movie poster, there's not the movie name, there's not any information about the movie itself except for a reference to that content. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up these filters so that it's not crazy looking. Apologies, because I forgot to override earlier. So I'm going to rearrange the filters just as a simple UI thing. Tell it this block overrides the filters. Remove the exposed title filter. And I'm also going to override the sort and get rid of that just to make this block better. Oh. So the amount of overriding, I'd just like to highlight, the amount of overriding I'm doing is generally just too much. If I were creating this movie review website for a client, I would make both of these views two separate views. Okay, but for now, I think we have a block that doesn't have a bunch of exposed filters, and we're good to go. Yes, just a normal block. So the way I'm going to pull in information about the movie from the movie review, so we are querying the content type movie review, and what I need to do is I want to add a relationship to the movie that this review is referencing. So over here on the right in the advanced section, I'm going to click add next to relationships. And we're going to see a bunch of options, almost 2 options for every single field. And the reason for that is because relationships go 2 ways. What I want specifically is I want the content that is referenced from the movie field. So right here, contents referenced from movie field. Check that and click apply. And that'll bring up a little settings form for this relationship where I can require it. That's fine. You can make it so that the content must have an entity reference to the movie. Mainly, I want to change the administrative title to be something a little simple to understand when I'm working with this relationship for now. So I'm going to click apply. I just changed the title to the movie. Now what we'll see is that when I add fields on the left, and I'm going to have more fields available. Well, I'm going to have, excuse me one moment. So adding the field on the left, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to search for the poster. So this is just the image field that I reused on that content type. That's great. I'm going to click apply. And now on the settings for this field, I have a new box at the top of the setting called relationship. And this is saying which content do I want to pull this image field from. By default, if I'm not using a relationship, then it tries to pull the movie poster content from the review. But since I don't have a poster on the review, it'll be empty. Let me go ahead and prove that. So I'm going to apply, and we're going to preview this, and we're going to see that even though I have this field, underneath the title called the image, it's not going to show up in the results. And that's because it's trying to get the image field from the movie review, which doesn't exist. So instead what I need to do is I need to click on that field, and I need to tell it to use the relationship that we added on the right called movie. Now it's trying to pull the image field from the movie content that is referenced by that entity reference. I'll save that. We should see our posters come up. They're probably going to be pretty big. Oh, got to click preview. There they are. They're huge. But they're there. If you're familiar with MySQL or just SQL syntax in general, you'll see that now that I've added a relationship to the view, the SQL is now creating joins between the different tables to pull in that movie content. So I'm going to edit this field one more time, and I'm going to set it to be tiny because this is showing in a block. And I'm just going to tell the image that I want it to be of the image style tiny. And I guess the image can also link to the content. Maybe. No, let's not link it to anything. All right, I'm going to save that field. And our updated preview will show we now have tiny movie posters. Oh, I guess it needs to, there they go. That is super tiny. All right. And I'm going to add one more field, and this will illustrate a little further, I believe, the relationships. For the movie title. So if I search for title, I'll see I have content title, which is exactly the same field I have on there already that is showing the movie review title. So instead, I'm going to add this new field called title, and I'll tell it to use the relationship to the movie content, which doesn't need to be a link. And I'll then rearrange it a little bit, and I think we're done here. Let's put the title above the poster. And take a look at the preview. So we now have the movie review title, which links to the review, the movie title pulled in by that relationship, and the movie poster also pulled in by that relationship. So relationships are very powerful. You can get really in depth with it, and I'm going to show that right now actually. So first, I guess, are there any questions about relationships before I go deeper? I'll give it just a moment. All right. If not, so what I want to do now is I want to pull in the director. So the director, and this is a little funny. So the director information is not stored on the movie review. It's stored on the movie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new relationship. I'm going to search for director. And I want content referenced from the field directors. Apply that. And now you'll see that we've actually taken 2 steps away from our original content. What I need to do is I need to tell this relationship that it should use the relationship of movie. So follow me here. I'm going to change the administrative title to director and save that. So the movie review has a reference to the movie, and the movie has a reference to the director. And what I've done is I've pulled in all of that data through relationships. I created a relationship to the movie and a relationship from the movie to the director. And so now I can use both of these relationships in my fields or in my filters. So say I'm going to add another field, and maybe this is getting too weird, but this is pretty common in my experience with building views that use a lot of relationships. So I'm going to find the exact same field again, the content title, and I'm going to add it to our view. And this time in the settings, I'll have the option of 2 different relationships. I'll have the movie or the director. I'll choose director. And it doesn't need to be a link, just stylistically. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. So now we have the content title field 3 times in our view. It's showing the name of our movie review, the name of our movie, and now it's showing the name of the director of that movie. Let's preview and take a look. Blammo. Uh-oh. So the matrix is showing up twice because it has 2 directors, Lana and Lily. But you see, aside from that, everything else is showing up great. So I wonder if we can resolve that. We probably can, but I don't want to trial and error here on the stream too much. As far as, and what I'm speaking of is resolving the multiple instances of the matrix showing up because we have multiple directors. So instead, I'm just going to, what am I going to do? What's the easiest way to resolve this? Probably just get rid of my director field for now. It's a sadness, but I was mainly wanting to illustrate a point how you can make a relationship to some referenced content or term, and from there you can make another relationship to content that item references. It's kind of a rabbit hole situation. All right, and it's actually this relationship that's causing the duplications. All right. So I'm going to save this and quick review. Basically, what I did was from the movie review, I wanted the movie poster and the movie title. So I added a relationship to the content field movie. And then when adding fields to the view, I chose that relationship as for what data that field will represent or render. So relationships, it was important that we look at relationships first because we're going to use them more as we dig into contextual filters. Let's let this load. And then we're going to start with a brand new view. All right, so there we have our block. It's got recent movie reviews and the name and the poster of the movie. That could be styled better, but for now, there it is. Okay, so let's think about what we want to do. For contextual filters, I think what I want to work on is I'm going to make some blocks that make the movie review page itself much better. So here I am looking at a movie review, and I've got a link to the movie here at the bottom, which is kind of boring and uninteresting. I've got the ratings down also there at the bottom. And then it's just a bunch of text with some information about the author. So I think I want to make two new blocks. I want to make a block that appears in the left sidebar that tells me about the movie that I'm looking at. And I also want to make a block in the left sidebar that says about the author of this review. And that'll help me get rid of this junk and it'll look a lot nicer. So let's get started with that. I'm going to go to the structure and views and I'm going to add a new view. And the first thing we're going to make is about the movie. And this will be pretty straightforward. All right. About the view name will be called about this movie. Sure. And it is going to be showing content that is of the movie review. So there's a lot of different ways to peel this banana, but basically I'm going to do it this way that leverages relationships like we just looked at. So it's going to be about the movie review, and that looks good. Oh, well, we're going to create a block, so I'll go ahead and check create a block. And it's only going to show one item because there's only one movie being reviewed. And that's good to go. So let's save that. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to create that relationship between the movie review and the movie again. And then we will add a contextual filter, which will make the block dynamically show the information relevant to the page that we view the block on. This is going to go well over 2 hours. I hope you guys are okay with that. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add that relationship back. Add. And that relationship was for the movie. Content referenced from field movie. And I'm just going to change the title of this relationship so that's easier to deal with. And then I'm just going to add some fields that we want about the movie. So we do want the movie title, and it will need to use our relationship of movie. I don't want it to be linked, but now's a good time to dig into these style settings. Some of these other settings on the field. The main one are style settings. So I'm going to look at style settings, and mainly what I want to highlight is that I can choose that normally this field is just output in a div, but I can actually choose to customize the field HTML and to output it as an H2. That way the movie name is nice and big. Save that. Then I want to see the movie poster, the movie directors, and the movie what? Let's see, poster, genre, directors, and genre. All right. And for each of these fields, I'm going to use that relationship to movie. The reason I'm doing all the relationship work first is because I feel like it's a better example of of how this works. And at the very end, we're going to add a contextual filter that makes this show exactly the movie information we want. So the directors uses the relationship movie. It won't be linked. Let's create a label for it, just call directors or directed by. There we go. And we'll basically do a few more steps for the other fields. So use the relationship movie. This is the genre. I guess it can be linked. I'm going to create a label called genre. Save that, and then we have the movie poster, and we should be good to go as far as fields. All right, the movie poster, we'll use the relationship for movie. No need for a label, but the image style will be thumbnail. Save that. And we should be able to preview this view and see what this looks like. Okay, so it's just pulling in the first one it found. We so far haven't limited this this view to any particular movie review yet. And so the first one it found is Colossal. And here's what it looks like. Directed by, genre, drama, comedy, got the movie poster. Looks pretty good. I think that movie poster could be bigger, but I don't want to get too nitty-gritty with it right now. So now what we want to do is, I'm going to save this. Let's see. Now what we want to do is we want to filter out this view, and we want it to say, show me the information about the movie that is on the node we are currently looking at. So if I'm looking at the movie review about The Matrix, I want this block to show information about The Matrix. And we do that with a contextual filter. Previously in other Drupal views versions, maybe a while back, maybe Drupal 2 or views 2, contextual filters were called arguments. So if sometimes you hear about views arguments in other UI throughout Drupal, they mean contextual filters. Another way to think about it is dynamic filters. These filters change based on whatever you're looking at in the system. So let's add one. What I want to do, so imagine actually first, on the left, if I was creating a normal filter, how would I make it show, just with a normal filter, how would I make it show the movie information about a specific movie? Well, I would use, about a specific review. I would use a filter for the content ID, and then I would just type in the ID of the movie review we wanted to show. So that if my movie review for The Matrix was node ID 10, I would add a filter for content ID 10. Well, that exact same thought process goes into creating your contextual filters. It's just that you'll never supply a specific content ID or any specific filter value. So let's see that in action. Over on contextual filters, I'm going to click Add. And when this comes up, you'll see it looks just like all of the others. And I'm going to look for, search for ID. Somewhere down here, here it is, the content ID. And let's add and configure this filter. So this form is a little more complicated, but it's broken up in a nice way, I believe. Once it loads, we'll see that we've got two major sections to the contextual filter form settings. And that is what the view should do if the value is not available, and then further down, what we should do if the value is available. All right. So there are a number of ways you can configure this. For example, you can say if the filter is not available, then provide a default value, and you have different options for going to get the default value. This will be views trying to just detect the context that you tell it to expect. So I could say, provide the default value of the content ID from the URL. And if I'm on a node page, the node ID will automatically be applied as the filter value. That's good, and that would absolutely work for what we're trying to do here. But I like to set it up a little differently. And so what I recommend is actually these steps. When the filter is not available, we want to hide the view. That way, this view, when we place it in the blocks column, it doesn't just appear accidentally, randomly throughout the site. We want to say, unless I specifically give you a value, do not show this view. And then here in the when the filter is available or a default is provided, we want to validate whatever argument is coming into this filter. And it's real simple, sounds complicated, but it's not. We just want to specify a validation criteria, and we will select the validator of content, and we're going to say that the content is of the movie review. So whenever this view receives a contextual filter value, it will check to see if that value is the ID of a movie review. And if it is, it'll show the view, or if it's not, it'll hide the view. All right, so real quick, one more glance. If the filter is not available, hide the view. If the filter is available, specify validation criteria, content, movie review. And you've got some other options here as well, but we'll just keep it that simple for now. And apply that, and we'll go down and look at our preview to test this out. So once this gets done saving, we'll see that, I'll just pre-tell you, I guess. If I try to preview this, nothing's going to come up. And that is because we told it to hide if there is no contextual filter value. Well, this box here in the preview section allows us to type in contextual filter values just for previewing. Let's just test it out without having to go back and forth between pages. So I know that one of the content IDs for a movie review is 22. So I'm just going to type that in and hit preview. And now we should see it working. Yep. So now that a contextual filter value is provided, this view shows up. Okay, great. I think we're ready to place this block on a movie review page. So you might be wondering, like, well, how are we going to give that contextual filter its value on the page? And that's actually sort of it's new to me, I guess. In Drupal 8, blocks have the ability to provide contextual values to views. And so when I go and place this block on a page, I'll have the option to tell that block what the value of the contextual filter is. And this is why it's important to, when you're creating a contextual filter, to specify the validation. Like tell it what you expect, and then it'll know how to prompt you for context on the block page. Okay, that might seem a little much, but let's do it. So I'm going to go to Structure and Block Layouts. And in the left sidebar, I'm going to add or place block for About This Movie is the name of that block. There it is. And now when I'm configuring the block, here it's asking me, what is the value of the content ID contextual filter? And since I specified the validation for it, I can provide it right here, the node from the URL. So it'll work in other ways, but this is the way I like to do it. I like to explicitly provide the values for contextual filters. The next one I'll make, I'll make it the other way just so you can see how they both work. But for now, this will do. All right, so one item per block, node from the URL, and this is only going to appear on the movie review page. Let me save that. Then we'll go check out a movie review. And we should have a nice little block about the movie. All right. So I'm just going to go to node 22, I think. Wait on this to load. Hey, there we go. So now when I'm now when I'm on a movie review, there's a block on the left that tells me about the movie that is being reviewed. So let's look at another one real quick just to verify that, because we've seen Colossal a few times. Let's go to one of the Matrix movies. There we go, this one. Yep, so there we are. So this block is pulling in, it is contextually filtered by the node that I'm viewing, and it is pulling in a relationship to the movie that is on this node and pulling all that information into the view itself. And so now we have a very dynamic block. So I'm going to do one more like that. I'm going to do about the author that tells us about the person who wrote this movie review. It's pretty common. I feel like it's a common use case for article-based websites or blogs or something like that, where you want to maybe show some author information in a different part of the page. All right, so I'm just going to run through this one real quick. So I'm going to add a new view, well, as quick as the page loads will allow. It is about the author. It'll also just be showing content movie review. It's because I'm doing everything with the relationships. That's why it works this way. I'll create a block about the author. It'll show one item, and let's get building. So this time, instead of adding a relationship to the movie, I'm going to add a relationship to the user, the author of the node. But otherwise, I'm going to use the same contextual filter. But I'll do it a different way just so you can see. And also, I'm going to have the contextual filter override the title of the block, which can seem magical. So first things first, let's add a relationship to the author. content author. And that title works. So I don't need the content title field. Instead, I want to pull in the fields that I made on the user, which is the user picture and the user name. There we are. And the picture field and the name field. That's the one. All right. So the username uses the relationship to the author. That's great. And same with the user picture field. And so if your user accounts had a field for like a bio, you could also just include any fields that are attached to the user. If the user has, if you're using the profile module and the user has additional profiles that you want to pull in, then you could easily add another relationship to that user's profiles. So let me just delete this title field. We'll add a contextual filter, doing it the other way, where the filter itself just sort of detects the node ID. All right, so add a contextual filter. Oh, So if anything, this stream has taught me that learning everything about views is probably about 4 hours of class, not 2 hours. Good to know. Hopefully there's some value in this. Okay. So this time I'm going to tell it when the filter is not available, I'm going to provide a default value, and that'll be the content ID from the URL. That's it. Pretty straightforward. I don't need to specify validation criteria. I can. It can't hurt. But the main thing the main difference between both of these works sort of the same, but whether you provide a default value when the filter is not available or not is up to you. I personally like to provide that value from the block setting. But let's see what other options we have. Under more, let's see, administrative title. Nope. So one more thing. Here we are. When the filter value is available or a default is provided, I'm going to override the title of this view, and I can actually use, which I haven't shown, I can use a field that is on the view can be used as the title for the block. I'm going to do that for now, and let's just see how it goes. All right, this should be good to go. We just need to place this block on the movie review pages. Same way we did before. All right. Waiting and waiting. Next time I do this, I'm gonna set up caching or something. I don't know why it's so slow, but I guess there's plenty to talk about in the meantime. So what I did with this contextual filter is there was a tiny little checkbox for override the title, and so now when we view this block on a specific page, the name field should automatically override the title of the block itself. I did that just kind of to show it as an example, but there are many reasons why you might want to do that, or why it's important to do that on a view. Say for example, I'm just adding the about the author block to the sidebar. But say for example you have a page view with a contextual filter. You can actually have the contextual filter pull its value from the URL, in that it's not a node, but it is part of the path you create. So in doing that, you can then have the title of the page that is shown change to some value related to that contextual filter. And that's actually a part of core. They do that in the taxonomy term view. So let's look at this about the author block. Then I'll glance at the taxonomy term view. And after that, I think we're done for the day. There's plenty more to learn. I didn't quite get to the templating and all the stylistic stuff that should be gone over, but 2.5 hours seems like enough. Well, there we go. So now we have an about the author block. It's got the name twice. Maybe you don't want to do that. That's up to how you build the block. But now we could hide this section here from the content type completely. So let's edit the movie review. And I'm going to disable the display node author information. Here it is. Display author and date information. Get rid of that. And go back and take a look at it. And we got what's starting to be a pretty decent movie review site. There could be more care taken in the views that are created, but it's starting to shape up, I would say. Some other ways to improve this, some other ways that would use relationships and contextual filters would be on a movies page. We could pull in the relationship to the director and show name, picture, and bio of the director when viewing a movie itself. Additionally, when looking at a director's node, you could pull in a list of all the movies they have directed. That would be pretty simple and pretty useful. And the list goes on. You can, with relationships and contextual filters, you are able to start pulling in exactly the content you want from all the different relationships that you make between your content, and start putting it with contextual filters. That allows you to start putting that content as blocks in different areas of your site. So this works well with panels. If you're familiar with panels, you can create blocks with views that expect contextual filters, and in the panel interface, you can specify the value of those contextual filters. All of this together gives you a ton of flexibility of how you can build out the website exactly how you want without writing any code. And that was sort of my closing pitch. But before I close, let's look at the taxonomy view. And we can do that by clicking on this term, science fiction. Let's see, if I visit this taxonomy term, you'll see that the title for the page is science fiction. And that's, but the URL for the page is just taxonomy term 2. So the way they're changing that, the way this view is set up, my guess, I might have something wrong here, but is the taxonomy term ID is a contextual filter. And on that contextual filter, it is, I'm going to have to get to on that contextual filter, it is overriding the title for the page. Let's double check that to see if my guess is right. And regardless of whether it's right or not, we're going to call it a day. Here we are, the taxonomy term view has multiple displays, a feed, like an RSS feed display, and a page, which we just saw. And here's the contextual filter for taxonomy term ID. Let's see, they might actually be doing the page title with this header, but I suspect they're still overriding the title. Yes, they are. Here in the contextual filter, they've got it set to override the title when the filter is available. And they're passing in arguments TID, which is again how contextual filters used to be called arguments. This is a twig template variable that views itself as supplying. And there we have it. So if you have any questions or comments or any thoughts at all, let Drupal Dojo know. Thanks for hosting. Hopefully this kicks us off, gets us going on a good round of sessions, and good luck. Happy viewing. That's a word. All right.